Hey, Dave, thank you so much for doing it. Always a pleasure to connect, and especially in this context. Not over skiing as usual, but yeah, it'll be a fun podcast.
That'd be fun doing a podcast on the mountain, on the chairlift
Dude,
podcast.
oh my gosh, it's like I can't believe it has not been done yet, but that would be the best. I guess you would need like a long gondola ride to get into the deep topics, but
Yeah, maybe
or
in
just keep
Aspen this
riding the
year.
gondola. Yeah, it's totally possible. But man, I hit you up after I saw that incredible video that was posted about you, where you went in front of the a Senate committee
Right.
and and I'll pass it to you. But I think the thing that stand out to me is one of the was something that you said along in there was, hey, as a promoter, I
Hmm.
signed up to run a local business to bring music to my community. Here I am being a political activist, not because I chose to, but like the wolves are knocking on our door, whether
That's
it's
right.
nation or all in ticketing, and like we have no choice but to throw on the suit and to try and like, hey, if we want to keep providing this service to the community, like something's got to give. But anyway, what happened there? How did that get all set up? And what about your message didn't I hit? Why don't we, yeah, for those that didn't watch it, I will post a link to the video. Everyone should watch this video and share it, but I'll pass it to you, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, uh, so we've been doing a lot of stuff with in the state of Colorado with SIVA, which is the Colorado Independent Venue Association, which I am the chair, but also co-founder with as well. We've got about 100 different venues that we support and really try to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to make sure that everything is supported in Colorado. And so a couple of years ago, we tried to get a bill passed here, which was very similar to what they had passed in what they have now passed in Maine, which is like really this incredible bill, or incredible ticketing bill. And but sadly, it was a bipartisan effort, but it was sadly vetoed by our current governor, Polis. Um, and for some reason, he thinks that spec ticketing is not a thing, or not that big of a deal, I should say, which is pretty sad. But I
Does
think that
does he
through our what's that?
does he think that, or is it like money pulling his strings? Would you say?
I mean, I'm not him, but he specifically told me, why is this a specific congressman calling me and telling me that this is not a good bill and I shouldn't do this and these are the things. So I think that there was some outside pressure, whether it was and to tell you the outside pressure too, and I believe that I touched on this in the in my testimony, is that when we had our Colorado bill in place a couple of years ago, we were able to get four lobbyists, and which is considerable, and it really helps when you're talking to hundreds and hundreds of different Congress people. So we had four, and the scalping community, they had 75 just for this one bill,
Ooh.
which is insane. And when we were talking to the different Congress people, and they pretty much were like, I've never seen anything like this. Like this is insane how many people that they are bringing to the table right now to try to push their agenda.
And for them to say that they've never seen anything like that is astonishing, considering it's Colorado and the
Right.
alcohol
Yeah.
lobbyists, and like when they were fighting like marijuana legalizing and a
Yeah.
hundred like I don't know, mining and like a hundred other. Colorado is not a state that hasn't faced political challenges, and they're saying that this is the craziest one that they've seen. Wow,
Yeah. Well, and that
that's
was a few years
empowering.
ago.
Yeah.
But because of all the stuff that we were doing around this and talking to, the um, Hickenlooper and also Senator Bennett and whatnot, and all the great work that they did for the SVOG and through NIVA or through NIVA and everything. So we do. I do have a good relationship with them, and so when things do come up, sometimes they'll hit me up along with, like, I'm sure several other or many other people within the entertainment community to sort of get people's initial vibes on their what they should think about new bills that are coming up. And so that's what so Hickenlooper's team reached out and they said, hey, we're having we'd like to get get an understanding of like a few ticketing bills that are up in Congress right now, and would you have some availability? And this was like about a week and a half before the testimony actually happened. And so at the end of the testimony, or at the end of the meeting, they said, would you potentially be available to come to DC next week to testify? And I said, sure, yeah, whatever you need. And so a few days passed, and I think on Friday I heard, and Tuesday I was on a plane to testify.
Wow.
So
So where was the test? Where did you testify in DC?
it was in the Senate. It was a Senate Commerce Committee meeting. And
Okay.
so Hickenlooper is a ranking member. Senator Hickenlooper of Colorado here is a ranking member on the Commerce Committee, which is a really important committee for everything that's happening in ticketing. That's kind of like the ground zero, among other things that are in there, including AI. So they are going to be very busy over the next few years and more, dealing with all the rules and whatnot. And so Senator Blackburn oversaw the testimony, and then also Hickenlooper's the ranking member. Ted Cruz was there, and several other senators during, kind of in and out during the testimony.
Interesting. Did you talk with any of them after the fact about, if your message landed or, yeah.
No, but I think a good indication of that is afterwards sorry, just to back up 1 second, is that we had to submit a full testimony, which is on the link that I had sent you to from that Senate Commerce Committee site. And at the bottom of it, you can see my full testimony, which is about 11 pages long. That obviously doesn't translate into a 5-minute testimony. And so I had to narrow that down to about 3 or 4 pages in order to get, really a condensed talking points in there. But the full testimony is on the site at the bottom. And you can also see Kid Rock's. You can see the full testimony from Dan Wall from Live Nation and Brian Barry from the Ticket Policy Forum. And so you can see all of them. And they all testified. You may have just seen, or people may have just seen my testimony, but each, the other 3 testified as well, spoke their mind. And then we talked there was probably 2 hours of questioning afterwards that went back and forth. And so obviously Kid Rock was the big draw. There was a lot of media there. There was a lot of media, a lot of lobbyists, a lot of media, it was a packed place, and the senators were sort of like in and out and stuff. But I didn't have anything to hide. And so I was pretty, I wasn't really sweating anything, and I could speak to whatever that they were trying to throw at me. And also Kid Rock, I feel like he was pretty speaking from the heart as well, and and he was very eloquent, and we were kind of interestingly talking on the same page. So yeah. And but the bulk of the questions really came from the senators to Dan Wall from Live Nation and then Brian Barry from the Ticket Policy Forum.
Yeah, got it. And what was Live Nation's, if you could summarize Live Nation's like stance when they were there, what was it? And it's confusing because these things get grouped together, but on one side there's this question, and maybe there is actually some overlap between these topics. So there's a Venn diagram with some overlap, but also there's differences between Live Nation and Ticketmaster monopoly discussion versus scalping and then even Senate scalping, traditional scalping versus spec tickets. So I've seen Live Nation take stance against the StubHubs of the world, but at the same time the IF Sauron swings back on them in terms of the monopoly side of things. So did you see them kind of defending the monopoly side, or were they on offense towards spec ticketing, or anyway? Yeah.
Well, it wasn't.
Stance was
Yeah, they were essentially saying they weren't a monopoly. That was definitely and there were specific questions from, I forgot which senator or whatnot.
Stance, by the way.
Right. But there was definitely like questions that were thrown at them like, do you feel that you are a monopoly? Are you a monopoly? And they were kind of, you know, getting into the legalese of everything. Well, what is it actually? What does this word mean? And what does that word mean? And if you put a comma here, like, you know, it's all that type of stuff around just how it all really plays out around.
My God.
Yeah. So it was hard to listen to in that respect, and it was hard to hear this the StubHubs of the world and whatnot suggesting that um, you know that I don't know that they're doing that, all these scalpers and whatnot are doing like are very like for the people and doing everything that they can to like help people get tickets into their hands, but you're also dealing with so much egregious activity, or you know, around like spec ticketing and websites that are deceptive URLs that are pushing people into other areas that, and it's just there's so much misinformation out there for
Yeah.
patrons and whatnot, and nobody's really owning up to those pieces, and that was really frustrating to hear, and probably frustrating to also Kid Rock, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting. What you know, Kid Rock was obviously a consequential part of the all-in ticketing and getting you know, doing his press conference next to Trump, where you know they
Yeah,
basically put that in place, and it did lead to a sweeping change across the industry. Like I think it was the most drastic change I've ever seen, and the ticketing companies got in line, and now when you
right.
buy a ticket, it's all in.
Yeah,
Where's he coming from now? Like, what's his next step? And was he, you know, and again, there he was addressing all in ticketing. That's a very different topic than the Live Nation discussion. Was he speaking out against Live Nation? Was it further on spec ticketing? Like, is he still harping on all in? Like, where was he coming from?
it's not just the all in. I think everybody's on the same page with all in, and it is a national law now, so we're all doing it, and that definitely helps. And you know, people are seeing what they're going to pay up front, you know, and not just at the end. Excuse me. So that's a good thing. What right now is, I think he's trying to suggest that he really wants to make sure that as an artist, he has the ability to do what he like. All the tickets, you know, it's like we work directly with the artist and the artist team. You know, we take all the, as a promoter, we take all the risk. The age, you know, the artist, it's like their reputation, their fans and whatnot, and so they should be able to like do what they want with their tickets, you know. And so if they don't want them to be um you know, $5,000 up for a lawn ticket, you know, that is $50 or something like that, they should be able to come out and say, I don't want that, you know, that those types of things. So they want more. He said he wants the artist just to have more control of all of it from the top down, as to like how his these tickets are facing the public, you know, which is valid, you know, and that's something that we are very much supportive of.
It's good to hear that he's still in the game, because obviously he was able to get something done, and he's influential, and has the ear of Trump, which you know the industry can use. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's not a political statement, or it's not like a right or a left leaning statement. It's just, you know, we're in a battle here is what I'm the vibe that I'm getting from you, and you know that's good that Kid Rock
Absolutely.
is, you know, still in there fighting. So if I'm hearing you right, like he's now switched from all in ticket and more so kind of like artist control pricing, and like and again, to break these things apart, there's all in ticketing, which is now in a better place. But now
Hmm.
there's this whole kind of, okay, you know, the artist and the venue agree to one ticket price, and then it goes crazy on StubHub, or you know, people list things at a completely different price. And is this perspective that should just totally go away? And I think I should ask your perspective on it. Like I at the end you clarified, you know, what your position was, and I assume you were maybe speaking on behalf of NIVA, or you know the Colorado, you know, the alliance,
Independent venue.
independent vending
Right.
alliance. Yeah. So yeah, what is your stance, or what was Kid Rock's stance on like what should happen? What is your stance, and are you kind of speaking on behalf of these other groups, and are you all aligned on that? And yeah.
So I think with, as far as me as a independent promoter, and then speaking on behalf of like Colorado Independent Venue Association, and also through NIVA. I mean, I think we're all aligned that nobody's suggesting that we ban um, scalping or like secondary ticketing. Nobody's saying that should be outlawed. I think what everybody's saying is that it's been the Wild West for a long time, and we need to put guardrails on things. And there's a lot of nefarious activity that's happening. There's a lot of bots, and there's the Bots Act, but the Bots Act is not, nobody's enforcing it. And when you're talking about um, very expensive software that one person can purchase or a company can purchase, and that purchases thousands and thousands of tickets, from all across the world. Like, how is an attorney general going to be able to deal with like those types of situations on a nightly basis, especially when we, as the promoter, are paying a band, on a versus deal, and looking at it like as a, if I have to pay a band, that's getting into points, and then all of a sudden these guys who can't sell their tickets are going to be um, doing a chargeback afterwards and claiming fraud, and then how is an attorney general going to be like dealing with that person, some bot farm in the Ukraine, you know, and when am I going to get made whole on that? Is that going to be a month from now, 5 months from now, a year? Like, I don't know, and how are they going to deal with like the amount, if it's thousands of bots or whatever, just for me, how are they dealing with that with like Red Rocks and the Nuggets and the Avalanche and whatnot? It's there would have to be like an entire part of the government.
So are you?
It's
Yeah, you thought, you made me think about something that I hadn't considered. Is that happening at a painful scale where some scalper that's in charge of a bot farm makes a bet on some show being high demand,
right.
and turns out the show, they're holding on to tickets they can't sell, and their strategy is just to do the chargeback.
Yeah,
That's happening, and then they're like,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And and
wow,
and
that's
and just from
painful.
talking to other um, promoters that I know, they see that all the time. And interestingly, like just over the past couple months, we've seen an increase just from the chatter that I'm on from like a few different promoter groups and whatnot that I speak with. They're like, "Are you guys seeing an increase in this?" And like, we're getting killed here, and it's awful, And there's just there's no, there's nothing ethical. There's no scruples. There's nothing. It's just like they're, and what I've said before, it's like most of these guys, and maybe it's not StubHub as a whole because they're going to claim that they're a marketplace, or Vivid, they're a marketplace, but they can control like the activity that's
Yeah,
happening within there with those bad actors, and there's a lot of bad actors, uh, but it's like so how do you deal with them? And if it's one person who has 5,000 different accounts, how are you going to deal with like all those different accounts on this one particular site? And he probably has 5,000 more that are on Vivid Seats, and 5,000 more, and maybe a few on Ticketmaster and whatnot. How do you deal with like this on an exponential level? And going back to your initial point that you made about, my opening statement, that's exactly what I was talking about. It's
yeah.
gotten to this like level, and who knows what's even like how it's even going to play out with like AI.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was like, there's the good side of AI, um, and then there's the bad side of AI, and I'm like, I'm wondering. That's what, when you said it's etched up in the last couple months. I wonder if it's people like hooking up Claudebot and and using AI to streamline this.
hmm I
Yeah,
think it's going to get more streamlined, and it's going
yeah,
to everything is going to make it like more and more easy and more, turnkey for these guys for these bad actors to do things a lot easier, and like how they're and it really like with the spec ticketing and whatnot, like everything gets ramped up with like the amount of tickets that they put out there, and they're starting. It's price manipulation. It's
Mm,
price gouging, price manipulation, especially if they can't sell and they're putting stuff on sale for much lower, and we still have stuff on sale. Um, And yeah, it's a it's an uphill battle for sure.
It's an uphill battle, but you're putting your armor on and you're going to battle, which I appreciate. And like, why don't we just zoom out for a minute? Like, what? And part of your opening statement was, "Hey, I'm doing this because I have to," you know. And I wonder if we could just talk about that a little bit. Like, do you, it's amazing to see you and NIVA and a lot of other people say, "All right, you know what, we're not going to go quietly, into the night or whatever with this one, and we're gonna." We're going to push for the changes that we think need to happen to make this industry sustainable. Like, where's your optimism levels on on winning this battle as a whole, as independents, and what is driving you to make this effort to go and talk to Senate and Congress? And I'm sorry if that's uh
No, that's
yeah,
good. I understand
I'm
where you're
trying to
coming
be
from.
good spirited with the question. Yeah, not question you. Yeah. Anyway,
So I feel more optimistic than on the state level right now than I
yeah.
do on the federal level.
Mm,
But on the state level, we've already seen like a lot of great um, uh, legislation that's working, like with Maine, Maryland.
good.
There's a few more that are like on the books right now, and they continue to come out. That on conversely, though, there's a lot of legislation that continues to come out that we are having to be reactive on. That NIVA especially has to be reactive on to say like, from all of these um, scalpers, like with all the secondary legislation that is trying to like put in more things that are going to be beneficial to them rather than like the ecosystem as a whole, to allow them to do more of what they want rather than, you know, understanding that we are the ones who are at risk, and it's like that piece of paper that I rolled out with all the direct show costs, that they don't pay.
Yeah.
There's nothing. They don't pay any of that at
Mm,
all. And especially once, and especially as I mentioned, like to put the salt on the wound is like they're charging back afterwards. So it's like not only are we having to like pay everybody, we're having to like also have to pay even when we don't have that money in our bank account anymore.
yeah, it's and that's a brilliant point that you made about the stance that StubHub makes, which is essentially trying to shift the blame and say we're just a platform.
Right.
We didn't we the people
A
using it
lot, a lot of all the tech
chargebacks.
companies are saying that,
Yeah,
who have
yeah,
these like marketplace platforms, they all have the ability to regulate as much as they want,
yeah,
like there's a lot of different, like on Amazon, there's reviews and whatnot, and on eBay, there's reviews. But I think that there's ways to also that they police each other on the different if there's refunds or you see some like nefarious activity, but that's like a one-on-one transaction. you know it's not
yeah.
like it's not like they're bots everywhere. I mean, there could be, but it's a little bit it feels a little bit more um, exponential when you're talking about concert tickets.
Yeah, I think just to talk directly about StubHub for a second, I was at the Aspen Live conference this year, which, man, we sure did miss you. I know you didn't make it this year.
I know.
Hopefully
Hopefully
next
this
year.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this year. Wait. Oh yeah, technically it's
this
this
year.
year. Good God, time flies. We're coming around the corner to Aspen anyway,
Yeah.
and I guess maybe not. It's only February, but anyway. And there was this guy from StubHub there, and it was this fascinating conversation because it was Access and Ticketmaster and StubHub,
Hmm.
and I think maybe one other. I think that was who the panel was, and it was a discussion about it swung from Live Nation monopoly to um, like first the Eye of Sauron was on StubHub, and
Hmm.
wow, if you could take the Eye of Sauron off of Ticketmaster in a panel, like you're in a room full of independent promoters that are quite mad at Live Nation for a number of things, but StubHub got the attention. Like that just says a lot.
Sure.
And this guy was brand new. That was to StubHub. I think he was maybe 8 or 9 months in, and he's actually a brilliant guy, and I think StubHub hired well with that, and he had like worked on Waymo and all these cool things, and man, they threw him into the lion's den.
Yeah.
And and I was like sitting there listening to the industry essentially like use this guy as a punching bag. And I'm just sitting there for a second. I'm thinking
Sorry, I missed it.
it was you did miss. It was very interesting. It was
Yeah,
very interesting. And he took it really well, and I really like the guy still. I mean, I don't think he was aware of a lot of these things. He's just a tech executive that took a cool job at a big company that's in music.
sure.
And I had this lingering thought where I was like, you know what? I'm listening to the room, and I'm like, I don't think StubHub cares to make. I don't know if StubHub cares to make that Aspen Live room happy. And I don't mean the Aspen Live room directly, but the people in that Aspen Live room it's an analogy of like, the people that are, in hard ticket plays directly running the venues, like, booking the bands, taking the risk on the shows. Like I think that they're a big company that has shareholders, and they're focused on their shareholder mission, and they're making an awful calculation to say that, hey, look, it's not our priority to make that industry happy. We don't serve them. Like we serve our shareholders essentially. And like
Hmm.
man, if they were to only just shift a little bit and they were to say, you know what, like if there's not a healthy ecosystem of people on the ground floor making this industry thrive, then
Right.
we don't have a business. This whole, I mean, Live Nation is durable enough to make it through these crazy storms. So man, I hope that they realize that at some point that serving their shareholders is aligning with the industry more. And I don't know they change if not. And going the government route and just make it and on a state level, it's great to hear that those are working. But I don't know. Have you thought about StubHub as a company, and you agree with what I'm saying there? Yeah.
I mean, I think that again, they have the ability to do the right thing. One
Yeah.
of the things that there are some companies out there that are looking at more open distribution angles, which I'm sure that was one of the things that
Yes.
they
He was
they were
harping on
talking
that.
about
Yep.
was the open distribution angle, and I do see that. I mean, that could be potentially the future of trying to help venues have the ability to like get their to ride the coattails of $800 million in advertising to get your tickets out there and to undercut the scalpers. I don't discount the value in that really. I do think that like there is something there to
So,
it that
so
could
Dave, we should
potentially
explain
help.
that. We should
Huh?
explain that. Um, uh, for those that don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave. So it's funny because they don't call it primary ticketing, but StubHub is getting into this thing called open market, I think the way you put it. And really, it's where the venue directly puts the ticket sales on to StubHub, right? And yeah, it's a very curious strategy, and it's almost kind of like, hey, if you can't beat them, join them type
Right.
situation. It's like, well, you know what? They have all this distribution, so why don't I? If I post, how do you feel about that? Like, it doesn't bode well to the primary ticketing companies, and also there's like contractual obligations to the primary ticketing companies. But yeah, do I have that model right? Like, what's your take on this model? And yeah.
As I mentioned, I mean, I'm like, as much as you want to have as much control as you want as you can, like how are independent venues who have limited budgets, and who are competing against the Live Nations and the AEGs of the world, how are we going to compete when it comes to and not only are we competing against them, we're also competing against that now all of these secondary ticketing companies, right? And all the different millions of scalpers that are on there. So how are we going to get around that, especially when they all have, if StubHub has $800 million a year advertising budget, I'm sure Vivid and SeatGeek and all these other places, are just up there as well. And so, and if they're working on all these different angles to like to for misinformation and whatnot to like get in front of our official vendor type ticketing company that might be pushed down the way on Google or elsewhere. Um, yeah, I think that that's something that I'm interested in exploring, and whether or not we do it or not. But like, I'm not there. I think that there's ethically, I don't, as an independent promoter, I don't think that if we were to go down that road, I wouldn't necessarily want to put it out there to scalp my own tickets, but I would want to put it out there to undercut the scalpers so they would purchase those tickets,
Right. Oh, that's a
so
tricky conundrum.
so it's just another place to put it. It's kind of like saying it's kind of like the old days of like you can buy it at through our website, but you could also go to the record store, and we have some stuff over there, and we also have some stuff at like the local. There's also different distribution points around town that you can also get it at. And so you're making it a little bit easier on the different on the patrons to try to figure out where to get these tickets.
And you know that these conversations always make me want to splinter and have 5 conversations at once, but
Right.
because they're so interesting. But the first thing that I am curious about is how does this work with contracts with the primary? Does the primary still, is this even allowed with, like, if you're like 90% in on one, like you signed a 90% contract with whoever, can you?
Well, there are companies right now that do have that option, and that they put it out there. There are other companies that don't do that at all, and that there are companies that have it in the pipeline.
So
It'll make it a turnkey situation for
the
promoters.
primary still, it doesn't get in the way of your contractual obligation of the primary, because the primary sends the tickets out there to StubHub or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
How does StubHub make money on those tickets?
Well, it's just like how they're always making money off of everything else. Like I'm sure that they get some sort of like percentage of, the credit card fee, but they have their ticket service charges on there too.
This guy was
And
saying something
there also could be, some sort of bump. I don't know what it would be, but like if a promoter's gonna, or a scalper or whoever, you set your own price, and then you are also going to also have to pay some sort of vig putting it out there as well.
This StubHub guy, I should have looked up his name, but what he was saying was that he kept saying that it's free to for the venues to do this. And I think what he was saying is it's free for Z2 to post the tickets, but they're still going to pass on a fee to the consumer.
I'm not aware, because I haven't gone down that road, but I would think that it's not free.
Now, Dave, is this? I'm gonna ask like a prying question. Is this like a lesser of evils thing that gets rationalized, where it's like, I could imagine there's, with the amount of disruption that company has created, there's pain in flowing with the system, but at the same time, there's a greater pain in not undercutting the scalpers on that market. So is it just, is it kind of like the market has kind of given you no choice but to play with them? Like, how do you walk me through how, like, what's been your process with kind of, arriving at, being willing to voluntarily put tickets on these platforms that are so problematic? Yeah.
Well, it's been given. It's just my whole thing is trying to make sure that it's easy for patrons to get the tickets. And sadly, what is going on now is that people want, at the end of the day, people want their tickets. A lot of people, for hot tickets, let's say it's Tate McRae or Olivia Dean or whatever, like, all they want is that at 10 o'clock, they want to go on and get their tickets and make sure that they have their tickets. And they're not necessarily looking at that particular website. They're just seeing, like, they just type in Olivia Dean Ball Arena, and that's and whatever the first thing that pops up, they'll click on it.
I got duped the other day.
Of course.
Yeah, Jamie from Nederlander at a NIVA panel like brought it up that I said that, so I don't tell the story as much anymore. I don't mind that she brought it up. I got a kick out of it, but like, yeah, the thing, it happened to me. I got duped. I like got all the way through checkout and was like, wait, what is this platform I just bought off of?
Yeah.
Ticket Center or whatever. I'd never heard of Ticket Center before. And then I was like, oh my God. It ended up working out. I got my tickets, thank God. It wasn't a spec
Right.
ticket. But because I was like, wait, I was on autopilot, I think, for Black Pumas at ACL Live, who's on
Right.
Access. Yeah.
And you just never know. And everything looks the same. There's there's a website that is here on for it's fillmoreauditorium.org. And that's for the Fillmore, and that's an unofficial, it is a scalper site.
Yeah.
And it looks exactly like the Fillmore. This is it's a Live Nation room, it's Ticketmaster and whatever, but like this is a deceptive website that looks exactly like Live Nation. It looks exactly like the Fillmore. It has everything on there, all the shows, everything, even on the sold out or not sold out shows. It's going to have stuff that's like triple the price, And even though you could go on Ticketmaster's site and get this particular thing, so they are very good about making it look, as deceptive as it gets, And these are the types of rules that we're trying to put into place. But like, that's how are you going to police all that? How is the government or whatever going to police all that? How is Google? How much is Google making per year? Off of all of these. They're the ones making the $800 million a year. So they have a responsibility to like call
Good point.
BS
Yeah, good
on
point.
these guys.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I love that. Yeah, you and I both kind of share the King David lineage, and I love this like NIVA feels like David, going up against Goliath with this
Right.
like these lobbyists, and like, can we just get a rock through that pierces the armor and knocks over
Yeah.
Goliath? Like I pray, and on that note, you and I were talking. I'm going to share my screen. You and I were talking before the call that speaking of like going up against the lobbyists at this there was just and yeah, Dave and I both acknowledge that neither one of us are like have done a deep dive, because literally right before we got on this call, I saw that it just posted. But yeah, antitrust lawsuit against Live Nation survives, but some claims dismissed. It's one of these moments where it's like, okay, what does this actually mean? What does it not mean? I hear Dan Wall is saying, while we are disappointed by some aspects of today's decision, we are grateful that the district courts dismissed all claims in the concert promotion and concert booking markets. With those claims gone, we see no possible basis for breaking up Live Nation and Ticketmaster. It's a curious statement by Dan there, and yeah, I don't know. And man,
I'm not enough. I don't necessarily like know enough to speak on this,
yeah,
but I do know that they're a very powerful company with a lot of money, and they have a Trump a president's crony who's now on their board. So I do think that like they're working all angles to make sure that they're keeping everything as is, And I'm glad that it didn't settle, and I'm glad that it is going to court.
Right.
But who actually knows what is going to transpire? I saw the list that came out of all the people that are going to be the witnesses. I mean, it's like who's who of everybody who are going to be testifying. But
interesting. I need to check that out.
Who's whether or not it does anything, or if it's just like a show trial, I really have no idea. But my hope is that something does change, especially around secondary ticketing.
Yeah, God willing. But the psychologist in me, not that I'm whatever credibility I have in saying that, which is probably very little credibility, but it's like with those claims gone, we see no possibility basis. I kind of double click on this statement, and I'm like, it's curious. Like, if he's saying that, it's his job to say that, and like, it's like
definitely his job to say that.
And like, does that mean that like they were sweating it more than they were letting off, and he didn't say zero possibility. He didn't say it's done. I don't know. Like, it doesn't. It's curious. Dave, what's your perspective on the breakup of Live Nation and Ticketmaster? I mean, again, it's remarkable because somehow these topics are similar, but they're actually quite different, right? Like this is a
I mean, it
different
is a monopoly. The
problem.
company is a monopoly,
Yeah.
and they have a huge vertical of companies, and they can exert a lot of pressure. Um, I do think that uh, if you wanted to buy a ticket, if you bought a ticket within the Ticketmaster system, and like let's say you couldn't go to the show, your kid's sick, your newborn is sick, right? And you just bought tickets, $300 tickets to Bruce Springsteen or something like that, and you can't go. It's the night of, and you're sort of sweating it. You're like, I just want to get rid of this. I don't care what it is. I just want to make something. Like they're essentially right now they have you only the only ability is to like have you resale it on their platform. So they're doubling up right there, and then they're also putting floors on things. So like let's just say you had a really last minute thing and you couldn't leave. You couldn't sell it for $50 if you wanted to. There's a floor of where you wanted to sell it. So if maybe they don't want you to go under 150, and there's no way that you could sell it. And that's not necessarily like a free market economy, for like
Yeah.
just selling whatever you want to sell it for. Whereas
Uh,
like if it
yes.
was open and if it was an open ecosystem, you would be able to like put it on and sell it wherever you wanted to.
Interesting. I'm curious to talk about the promoter side. Before I do, I want to give a shout out to Randy Nichols because sometimes these like things can be so difficult to understand. He's been
Uh,
such a help for me to like actually what does this thing mean? And
mhm,
I saw he mentioned something to me about like the case was based around a horizontal monopoly and it
mhm,
just a bit of vertical monopoly. And if we could step out of ticketing there for a second, like I know in Colorado and specifically the Front Range, AEG is like extremely dominant. And
mhm,
from our conversations, I don't believe Live Nation is as active in Denver, but there's a lot of other markets where they're building independent venues, and then
mhm.
there's some discussion around like the contracts and is there pressure to use Ticketmaster or you no longer get the content? Like, yeah, if we get out of ticketing, I guess it kind of all comes back to ticketing. But if you get out of like secondary, like, do you think what's your perspective on like the promoter side of the monopoly case? And yeah,
I mean, I think I guess I wouldn't want. I mean, I understand the exclusivity thing. And to me, like, it would be really easy for. It's easier, I think, for patrons and whatnot too, if like we had the ability to control where tickets are being sold, and if like if we want to, but and if the artist wants to, but to have it. Like there's no exclusivity as far in Europe, and there's all these different companies get some sort of portion of tickets,
I've heard that
and so have
like
sorry.
I've heard that that actually has like secondary is not as much of a problem in Europe, which is like really curious. It my ears kind of perked when you said like, hey, maybe we lean in and put the tickets here and there. And yeah, Boris was telling me that secondary is like not really a problem in Europe, and I wonder if it's like the whole like multi-distribution model. But yeah,
And it could be that, or it could be because regulators just listen to the people more. I knew know that there is a ban on resale, that is in place for the United Kingdom right now. I don't know if it's like a total ban, but like you definitely can. The ban is for anything that's above 10% of the base ticket price, which would which is also something that we're pushing for as well, that I'm pushing for, is like if it does go to a resale site, if a scalper does put it on something, then that person could only put it on for, you know, 10% on top, which would essentially put out probably really affect the bottom line for a lot of these scalpers.
super
And that's what's happening in Europe.
super interesting. It's a juicy take, and again, thank you for deep diving me with on this specific thing. And I do think I want to kind of talk, move the conversation forward to a couple of other topics, just because it's like we could just go on for hours about it. And at some point, like it's
Yeah.
like you just got to pull yourself out of it. real quick, have you are you we can cut this if it's a problem. Have you talked openly about your primary ticketing decision?
Yeah, we were on Access for a long time, and now we're moving over to Tixer starting in April.
Yeah.
So that was a big move. We've been on Access for 5 years, and we took a look at a bunch of different ticketing companies, and we really liked what we saw with Tixer. We felt that they were pretty forward thinking, and we also like the fact that they are integrated with Prism, and which we utilize for all of our venues. And so having that ability to be able to like look at all of our, um, on a real time level, like to be able to look at all of our um, uh, P&Ls, or how things are, how the shows are different, how they're progressing in real time is going to be super helpful.
Yeah, and I'd love to get the access integration done at some point. And Tixer is a great partner. So definitely don't want to make this about like poo-poo and access or anything like that. Like a lot of our partners really love access. I know the solution worked really well for you. But when I heard you were moving to Tixer, I definitely was like excited for the Prism aspect of getting that ticketing integration going. And
Right.
before you were on Eventbrite, before access, right? And you had the ticket integration running.
Yeah.
And it was like this moment of are you remiss even me bringing that up or yeah.
Dark times, dark times.
Ticket web, ticket fly just broke
Now,
all
Ticketfly, we love Ticketfly. That was great. That was
yeah.
awesome.
Man, ticket fly,
Um,
like people still talk about that platform and it's like tech has evolved so much in the last 12 years or whatever since it was around. But like
yeah.
I don't know if anyone's ever caught up to what they did. I don't know. I didn't get to experience it firsthand myself, but people still talk about how good Ticketfly was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was great company with great people, and it was very customer service oriented, not just for us, but for patrons too. Not just for patrons, but for us as well. And they were very like nimble and flexible and whatnot. And I think we're seeing a lot of, we all feel that maybe that Tixer has a lot of the same attributes,
Cool.
and so we're very excited how about our partnership with them.
Yeah, I really like that crew a lot and have been collaborating more closely with the folks over there. They've got some really good people and they're smart and they care deeply about tech. And again,
Yeah,
integration is it's one of our smoother integrations. So, and
yeah,
I'm
and so far so good with we're still early on in our
cool.
transitional period, but
Yeah,
like everything seems to be going smooth, and we're getting a lot of very proactive emails about, hey, this is what we can do. What do you need? Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's change this. What do and it's just, they're obviously everybody's very busy, but they're very proactive, and we appreciate that.
cool. I mean, just to take a moment to talk about Prism. I try not to make these podcasts like an infomercial for Prism, but hey, I'm the CEO, so got to talk about it a little bit.
Right.
And Dave, you and I we met at Pulsar, I think in like 2018, and
Mhm.
we're talking at least for a couple of years, and you were giving me feedback before you jumped on, and really appreciating you jumping on. I think 2019, and have been with us ever since, and I've seen the platform evolve. So,
Mhm.
if you could talk just about your experience with Prism and like how it helps you personally and Z2 and how it's changed over the years and what it's like working
Yeah.
with us, like that would be deeply appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely evolved, and I believe that what you guys have done, just to put everything all under one roof, has been incredibly helpful. We were a company, as a lot of companies were, with a lot of disparate information in all these different places, and Google spreadsheets, and or Excel spreadsheets, and Google calendars, and all this other stuff. And now everything's under one roof. And I do think that uh, how you guys are nimble as well, and very flexible, and you guys are constantly upgrading and making upgrades to make it easier for us. And also, I really appreciate the sort of like open AI component. Not open AI, maybe that's not a good
Insights.
word, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, the insights is great too, but like the way that you're able to allow other entities like Tixer or something like
Oh,
that come
the
in.
SDK, the API. Yeah,
The
yeah.
API, that's what I
Yeah,
meant.
yeah.
API
All good.
to like come in and integrate. And my hope is that, that continues in the future too, because I'd
Oh
love to
yeah, we're
see
leaning
like
in on that. I think it's the way of the future is like these systems got to connect and talk and
everything has to
yeah.
like it would be great. And I've mentioned this to you before is like being able to pull in like all of our revenue streams into one place, like the POS systems and whatever it might be that we need to pull in. So we're all looking at the real like the right numbers instead of having to like fat finger things and making mistakes and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm just
So
yeah, I'm like more into that vision than I ever have been before, and like on the positive side of AI, like
right,
our product development is moving really rapidly. You and I text a lot about AI on the side, which I appreciate. You're one of my partners who I think are kind of like more aware of like the changes that are coming with AI and wanting to
right.
be on the right side of it, which I feel the same way. And on one side, our development is moving faster, and like quality assurance is more important than ever. So that's like I think that doesn't make it into the Twitter stories. Like you hear all these stories about we rebuilt Salesforce with a AI prompt, and it's like okay, but what are all the how is it working at scale and how much is it breaking and what are the
Yeah.
security implications behind it? So we're keeping
Yeah,
quality on
that's
top,
scary. That is
right?
really
Yeah,
scary if
yeah.
something, you think that you're releasing
It's a lot of
something.
responsibility. Yeah. So I
It
cut
is
you
a
off,
lot of
Dave. Yeah, yeah.
responsibility. No, I agree with you fully. And I appreciate that you guys are doing that quality assurance because the last thing, we still with other partners and whatnot see that sometimes is like, they'll release stuff, but it won't necessarily be fully, uh, the quality assurance won't be there. And then they have to walk things back and it makes things very difficult on our staff, who are multitasking to like the nth degree, trying to like make sure that we're all, coming together with, trying to put the best foot forward to the artist and whatnot. And all of a sudden we like come into a roadblock and we're like, God, man, like, how did we get here? Like, why is this happening at this, yet
Yeah.
again? Or, we just had this problem a couple weeks ago. Why is this happening now again?
Yeah. Yeah. And with us, you just to clarify, you're seeing that we're not one of the vendors that you have that problem with. Yeah.
No, but you know what? There like if something like that should happen, and I remember something recently with like what was the one thing that you
Oh,
guys did put
the
out?
the ticketers. Yeah.
Yeah, the ticketers.
Yeah.
That was like it wasn't like a huge thing. It was like a trying to make things a little bit more efficient. It was like a little bit more involved for promoters, and I think that you heard from promoters saying, hey, this isn't wonderful, but you sort of came to a middle ground and it works just as great, and you changed it back
Yeah.
immediately,
Yep.
but it wasn't like anything that would affect
Yeah.
um the
Like
outcome of
the business didn't
something.
screech to a halt. Yeah.
It didn't screech us to a halt. It didn't make things like it
Yeah.
didn't mess things up for settlement that night. It was just a way of like building offers, that became a little bit more cumbersome, but it wasn't even like that big of a deal.
And I think I think our mentality at Prism has just been like really listen to our partners and care about the details. I'm sure I'm not going to win any like Nobel Prize or like what scientific discoveries with that unlocking scientific discoveries with that statement. Like it seemed it, but it's a lot of it's things that people mess up and they don't care about the tedious details. And for instance, like you messaged me the other day about when you click on the calendar that you had to like click on another toast button to get to the event, and that's 2 clicks, and sometimes that click wasn't the most effective. So I was like, you know what? I actually totally agree with you. Let's just put the second button right there on the page, and we
Right.
work together on I think a lot of companies don't would benefit from caring about the details more, and especially with the core booking tool. I mean, I don't think a lot of folks understand how like detail oriented it is, because it's like, okay, it's just a calendar and an offer builder and a settlement and financial reporting.
Right.
But the level of like, one of the first things you and I collaborated with is pre-settlement fees.
Hmm.
Can you build a charity fee into Prism and have the math all work accordingly? And then
Yeah. Yeah.
and does the tax calculate in percent or divisor, and
Right.
so yeah, there's no way we would have been able to make this work without an annoying list of details. But I've learned to be thankful for those details, because I think it is what sets Prism apart. When in comparison to other systems, and honestly, it's thanks to great partners like you, because we don't know what details matter until partners tell us. So anyway, and
Yeah.
it's
But I think it's good that you
yeah.
have your own, you were also a promoter too, so you
Yeah.
understand. And then, so you have that background as well. So you understand the sort of plight of the
Oh yeah.
promoter, like on a daily basis, so like that's
Yeah.
important.
And it's funny. It's like with this whole like AI discussion about, kind of automation of potentially like automation of jobs or whatever. When people talk about the live music industry, I'm like, okay, well, promoters are wearing the hat, and all of your staff are wearing the hat of 1,000 people or whatever, and you said to the nth degree. So it's like, even if AI cuts out 95% of the busy work, like then you're still going to be doing the job of 10 people. And like, I think
Yeah.
that's like potentially a very good thing that AI could help with. And we have, we're watching out for ideas on like how, we're kind of cautiously watching about, hey, like what are, I sent you a prototype about how can we like use AI to get back to hold emails faster or something like that. And
Hmm.
I do think there's some like a really good side of AI that is possible, and the tech is still improving, and security and quality assurance matters. But it's exciting times, man. I mean, like there's some, I think there's a lot of good news around AI. I actually feel that more in the last couple of weeks than I have in a while, in part because we're starting to really see things move faster because of it, while quality is staying high. But
Right.
I think it's really good news. Yeah. Yeah. You spend
Yeah. I
much
just
time
hope
thinking
you're not
about it. Yeah.
annoyed by all the texts and like
Dude,
screenshots and everything that I
no,
send you that have
no,
like
keep it coming.
photoshopping in like this is the way I think that it should look and like
No, please. It's
whatever.
so appreciated. It's the opposite, Dave. Um, hey, you were one of the first ones to hop on Insights. I want to talk about that for a second. I remember on a summer trip, I talked to you and Cheryl.
Right.
I visited Boulder, and before we launched, and I was so
Right.
happy to get the email back from y'all a couple weeks later saying, "Hey, we're in on it."
Yeah.
And the data share has grown exponentially since you joined. But what was your excitement when you heard about Insights, and how's the experience been, and how's it impacting your day to day?
Obviously the biggest hurdle that we had to get past was just putting the information out there, for it doesn't obviously say the Boulder Theater or the Fox or whatever, but it does say Boulder. And, we do a lot of business in Boulder. So anybody who's, within anybody who's using Insights can sort of like see where we're at, so that was a big hurdle to get over. But if you look at it like, from a very like 30,000 foot view of we are, we all work for the artist. We're all trying to also make it, like we're independent venues and we're all trying to like make the best decisions that we can all the time and mitigate as much risk as we can when we can. We all sort of came to the decision that it would be more beneficial than not, you know. And it was, we had to pull the ego down a little bit and say like, let's put it out there and just see how it goes. And so far, it's been great.
Amazing,
And
amazing.
yeah.
I think I was talking to a promoter the other day that had just gotten on, and they were in the middle of a show tanking, and I just thought, I'm like, oh, hey, check out what the show says on Insights, and they pulled up and I'm going to be vague about the details here to protect the data, but they pulled up the artist in
Uh,
Insights, and they on the spot learned that they were lied to by the agent about
mm.
the last time they had come through town, and in that
Are you
moment,
sure that they're lied to by? That's crazy. That's
shocking.
wild.
And it
Shocking.
was like in that moment where I just got this knowing that what I was doing, I knew what we were doing was right, and the correct thing to do to enhance the industry, but I was like reinforcing that belief like deeply.
Right.
because it's about mitigating risk in this, and honestly creating opportunity too. Like when you agents, I've had a lot of good conversations with agents about it. And there's a lot of very great, honest agents. There's sometimes when they're going to be held accountable by old patterns that need to die, because that's
Right.
no agent should benefit from a lie from a promoter. And if they're
Right.
really taking the game theory view out there, like they want a thriving live
Yeah.
music market and they want to win when you win and vice versa.
Right.
But it's it's stories like that where I'm like, oh man, this is a really really good thing for the industry, and we're gonna keep pushing into it, and yeah, getting more data in there, enhancing it, and helping people understand the
Yeah, and
risk
you also have
comes
to. I
into.
mean, there's a lot of data in there, and you also have to be smart about how you. I mean, it's a shame that whoever this person is, like had that unfortunate experience. I mean, we all, even if we have the data, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that it's still going to be a good show or not. But at least you have the data there. But you also have to look at it like I'm not necessarily going to be looking at how a show did in New York City, with a population of, you know, 10 million or whatever it might be and higher ticket prices and
Yes.
whatnot. I'm going to be looking at sort of like sister towns, or cities like a Portland or a Seattle or something like that, and it's similar range venues with towns that, are sort of in line with what we're doing in Boulder or
Yep.
Fort Collins for that matter. And also, I'm not also not going to be looking at what the artist did in 2019 either.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like it's all going to be much more
Di-
real time, in the last couple of years.
Dave, on that note, have you played with the Spotify local like listener plays at all? Like,
Yes, but not as much as I should have.
yeah, so we just launched this tool where, okay, yeah, so Dave's book in Boulder, and let's say there's a show in Insights with Chicago and Minneapolis. You can then chart where the artists following Spotify falling in each of those markets, which
Hmm.
alone I don't think is compelling data to back into
Right.
a prediction. But you could see things like, whoa, interesting. This artist, maybe in some situation, this artist is actually more popular in Boulder than Chicago. So even though
Right.
Chicago is a massively bigger city, the the play in Chicago might actually be more relevant here. So, I have this theory that like, I agree with you that, directionally, like Boulder's going to behave like Portland more than Chicago. But then there's certain situations where that's not the case, which is why we introduced this Spotify feature, which again does use some AI to complete the data. And I think this is an example of
Hmm.
AI helping. But down the road, like, we're more and more we're starting to like we're calling it a prediction tool. Like really what this is
Uh,
about is let's cut the guesswork out, and there's data that's out there that can help y'all mitigate risk on these giant bets. And even if you have perfect data, um, the day of the show, someone down the street could throw some party that messes up your show, or a meteor hits, or whatever, the
right.
weather is crazy, or there's an apocalypse, not apocalypse, an eclipse. God,
Yeah.
hopefully not an apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. So yeah, even with perfect data, like, promoters they need tools to mitigate risk, and
Well,
um,
I also think that,
yeah,
there is a lot of information that's out there that is like that. Like sometimes we'll get information from the bigger agencies, like when they'll send their marketing letters out to us, and they're like these really in-depth branding emails, or like marketing emails that just like go way deep into, what not just like the affinity lists of like what bands that they are associated with and who you should target and whatnot, but the brands that their fans are associated with too, whether it's like Lululemon or like whatever, and that's one of the things that like with Joe and I, when we're talking in the morning, like when we come back after a show, maybe he was at the Fox and I was at the Boulder Theater or whatever, and the next morning we come in and we're constantly talking about like demographics of like who was there and whatnot. And so we're saying like, oh yeah, it was like the the 60 something NPR wine drinking crowd, or it was like the dirty hippie crowd. They're like the stretchy people who party at night, you know. And then but
Five
there'll be
five
also
people.
like, yeah, right, exactly. Or it's like more of the conscious yoga crowd or this crowd. So like we're
Also five people.
constantly, yeah. So like we're just constantly talking about, um,
I love
uh,
that.
yeah. So we're constantly looking at the demographics, and so like maybe at some point this could be another idea for you guys would be to like pull in, try to find those like I'll try to find that sheet, that one sheet that I got. But it's a company that it pulls in like all the different brandings, and really
Oh, that's
like can
brilliant.
go super deep on the marketing angle of like who you really need to like reach out to in order to get that audience.
That's brilliant. Man, one thing that we're thinking about doing is like when you search, I'll use an artist that has passed, just whatever, keep the conversation kosher. If you're searching for Mac Miller or whatever, um, should we then fire off an AI search right then and there that can answer some of these questions? Like, here's the demographics. We just, AI just went and checked
Yeah,
30 data points across the internet like that. Um, and then also say things like, you know, oh, by the way, there was a record release, which
right.
is 10 out of 10 on Pitchfork or whatever. And
Yeah, that would
uh,
be amazing. And there's like there used to, I haven't done it in a while, but like Google Insights used to be a thing. You could do
Google
it with that.
Insights, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But there was another thing. Uh, he sold it to this guy, Alex White. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
Alex,
yeah,
but like
I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What was that
he
company?
used to have a company that he sold to Pandora or like that merged into Pandora. And they had something very similar to that. And you could really look at, he actually like put it out there at Aspen Live one year, like a long time ago. And everybody was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And it was like that, where you could see like, um, all the different trends of like, if you were a band like Wilco, what was Wilco doing? And you could see like all the things that Wilco was doing, like marketing wise and whatnot, like through the year. And, like, and if you were a band that was similar, what could you do that could be, that could like land on top of that, or, that you could sort of copy paste maybe, and that type of stuff would be extremely helpful,
Man, if you
Matt.
remember that product, hit me with it later. I thought about them the other day. Yeah, he went through Techstars in Boulder. I remember this guy, and I caught myself wondering about that. And it's funny the little flash in the pans that you see that come and go. But I think that idea is more relevant than ever, and especially pairing it with insights. Yeah, I think we have like similar artists. I think is another curious one. One thing that would be curious is, are you guys using Hive? I can't remember.
Yeah, we are. Yep.
Cool. Shout out to Hive, great product. We're talking about like, hey, you're using Hive, you're using Insights. What about surfacing, taking your data from Hive and saying, okay, based off of your data in Hive, which is all the ticket buyers at the venues, here's a list of bands and insights that match your ticket buyer data.
That'd be amazing. I mean, we're constantly trying to do that with like like we're tagging bands, whether it's we're always sending out e-blasts after the fact, or when we announce, like if we announce Trevor Hall or something, like we have like a conscious tag, within Hive or whatever, in addition to, as an affinity list. So we're constantly updating that and adding and taking things out. And maybe the artist is adjusting and they're moving into like a different
Love that.
type of genre. But like, yeah, all that stuff would be any sort of integration, and like that's what
Cool.
I think that's what I think makes a good partner, nowadays, especially with like how integrated everything is with tech, is like having all these different, your company connect with, our ticketing company, connecting with this potential branding thing, connecting with the POS, and like making it sort of like a bigger ecosystem. So you're constantly looking at like all of it, and then you could overlay things or like take things out and like try to figure out, where are these people and like how we can, increase revenue, with these people and whatnot.
And Dave, in this podcast, I'm like reminded of why I really look at Z2 as one of our most important partners because I think it's just such a well-oiled machine in the way you guys use the shit out of the product. You run the accounting reports through it. Like I can,
Yeah, we do everything with it.
yeah. And the way that you're talking about, like, you and Joe talking about the audience that shows up to thing, the tagging you're doing in Hive, like, like I mean, there's been a lot of sharp business in this era, which is sad to see. But I think one of the reasons why y'all are thriving through this storm, why you're making it through the storm, and is just the way that you approach things, and from such a data-driven perspective. And it's really impressive, man. Like I am excited to do this podcast in part to just share with more promoters how, like, hey, there's a way to, like, operate with more intelligence and more connected systems. And I think it helps. I mean, you're like, look, Prism alone and Hive and Tixer can't make a venue work, but you compare it with a staff that is digging in the way that y'all are, and it's just a beautiful combination.
Yeah, but I also think that, like, I mean, we're constantly trying to figure out like how to, like, one of the things that we're really trying hard, and that we're talking with the marketing team now, is like trying to figure out efficiencies with on that end too. Like there's so many, that's a big bottleneck right now, and like trying to figure out like how we can do more with less, and like utilize whether, there's companies out there like Fan IQ, and there's a few other ones that are trying to make it easier for like the marketing teams, to do things in a more efficient ways. Because right now, that whole arena is like unbelievably, like, it is about as manual as it gets when you're trying to make updates, and there's so many different, there's like, when you're talking about X and Facebook and Instagram and the website and this place and that place, and like, it's an incredible amount of work for the marketing team that I'm like so grateful that we have like these people a team that is really focused and wanting to do the best thing possible. But it's my job, and Christian, who's our vice president of marketing, like we're all like trying to figure out how to make things more efficient for them too, and again, like how that fits in. Maybe there's a way that Prism can help us out there too.
Yeah, let's talk.
There's another task for you, Matt.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming. I feel like my way of surviving the AI era is to, like, double down on making Prism better and better and better and better and better. So it's like, at some point, wake up in the morning and decide, why don't I just build my own thing or whatever, and prompt ChatGPT or run my business off of ChatGPT or something, which is like a little crazy to say now, but with the way it's going, like, I do feel like software systems have to, like, adapt and to survive right now.
Do.
You really have to
For
prove
sure.
out, and we're all in on that. Man,
Yeah.
Did you say you're using FanIQ? Am
We've been talking with them. We've
Cool.
tried the product, and like,
Yeah.
it's yeah, we've been talking with them and
Cool.
pounding on the product a bit. So we're
Yeah.
not fully there yet, but like I think that what they're doing is where things really need to go for
Yeah.
so marketing teams and box office teams and whatnot are not going to like lose their minds.
Yeah, a couple of others are Lalo and Radical. Radical is seen by the Tonen founder.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's some good, and yeah, Lalo is like coming from like announces, and they got really popular in the artist side of things. And anyway, like I think that there's some good tools out there, and like let's
And just not necessarily just integrating, like they also, those kind of companies, like the ones that you mentioned, and I don't necessarily know. I know Lalo because like they do some like ticketing, like some fan club ticketing and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I don't know the other one. But like they not only need to integrate with like the promoter, but they need to integrate on the side of the agencies and the managers too. So like, because I know that the agencies and the management team marketing, they're all, everybody's in the same boat. Like we're just over tasked when it comes to like the day-to-day marketing of things, especially with like how much is out there on the internet. And And I'm going to say something very radical right now. I
Please.
think we should get rid of banned bios altogether because nobody reads them. And
Yeah,
maybe it just pulls in, maybe it
where,
just pulls in directly from Spotify or something like
yeah.
that. And like, that's it. And like,
Where
if it's
else will you
not,
hear about a
huh?
band's influence and the merger of post country with hip hop and
Yeah, exactly. But it's
and
like,
the bus
when
and
you're like,
Icelandic,
when you're trying to promote and you're trying to like sell tickets and like doing all this stuff, then all of a sudden we all have to pivot because the band wants an updated bio that needs to be put out on like all the, we have to change it on the website and then on the Facebook page and then on the Instagram and all that stuff too. It's like,
I hear
it's
you.
not needed. Like like, I mean, it's great that the most important thing is the music at the end of the day. And maybe that leads into the bio,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. Yeah.
but it's not necessarily the opposite, you
No,
know.
I love it's a fun point. Let me this has been an awesome conversation. I gotta get ready to pick up the kiddo from school, so I gotta wrap. But I want to ask one question now. I tend to ask questions that are, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to throw a big one at you. Long story short, it's been an amazing conversation on one end about, the daunting side of the battle, the optimism side of the battle, your decision to just, put the armor on and go in and be brave with it anyway, regardless of the, possibilities and, the percentage outcome. And then we jump to AI and tech and, stitching together tech platforms and how AI can help.
Hmm.
And it's the conversations out there is that it's been rough out there for venues. You pile on monopolistic stuff with scalping and then inflation and consumer
Yeah.
budget tightening. But here you are, you're alive, you're going to Senate, you're fighting the good fight. What is your optimistic bull case on how things play out in the next 5 years so that independents are stronger than ever? That's the question. Yeah. How does this peer into the
How does
crystal
it play
ball
out?
as much as possible? Yeah. Yeah. And the optimistic side of how it plays out. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty excited about, post COVID, how like the banding together of all the independent venues and it takes a village, not only for like each show, but also takes a village to like make sure that um, on a state level that we have SIVA, the Colorado Independent Venue Association, and that we're doing things on a state level. But I also feel that NIVA and Stephen and Kendall and everybody at NIVA are doing an incredible job, in DC, beating the streets there and making sure that we're having our voice heard, so other people, so other businesses, other big corporations and whatnot are not necessarily like making all the rules for the rest of us, and that we are going to have a seat at the table, and so that's all that makes me optimistic that as we continue, like that is a really important role for all of us, is to be more active, within our communities, within the states, and then within uh, um, at a federal level too. Like even this whole movement with the night mayor stuff, the night mayors, in each of these different towns, helping out with the different, with the nightlife within all these different communities. Like I think that's huge. I think in New Orleans, Howie, with the Howlin' Wolf, he's the night mayor over there, and in all these different communities, they have that now, and so they're understanding that it's a real, that the entertainment is real, that it brings in revenue, it brings in people, it helps sustain the communities, and so the more that all of us can be active within our communities is going to be really helpful for um, years to come.
Love that. Love that. Do you, what about like, are you bullish on, um, the people, leaning in more and more on live music and live music growing, not
Oh,
just
for sure.
at the club level. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the most analog thing that you can do in this like digital world, is like, you know, I mean, everything is like on the phone or on computer or whatever, and everybody just loves to go see, just go see music, and be together
I
and go see music. And
love
I
it.
think that, like, especially on a uh, on a on a when we talk to people in Colorado, I mean, we're asking them like, what do they like to do, and like their sort of likes and dislikes. Like, with Colorado, it's like within the top three, it's always like hiking, skiing, and going to see live music. Like
Yes.
it's always like within the top three. And I think that
Totally.
people, music plays a big part in plays a big role in people's lives, and they love to not just to see their favorite bands, but to be um, in the community and
Yes.
being at their and being in venues and supporting live music.
I agree with that. And on that, in this disorienting time with all the things to get distracted by, like that's something to orient around right there. It's like the live music. Who like do we believe in the live music experience? Like just
Right,
growing, yes, like resounding yes.
right,
It's been there my whole life, as my earliest memories as a kid, to my most joyous memories in college. Now as a
right.
36-year-old father of three, like I'm seeing I'm seeing a band in. I just bought tickets in a couple of weeks to a band that I just found online. I'm blanking on the name. Oh my God, why am I blanking? But anyway, I'm just like I can feel the excitement boiling up, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get a babysitter, and
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
yeah,
It's a great night out. It's like it makes you happy and keeps you young, and like it's the best thing that it's out there. Like, because I mean, I love going to. I mean, just live events in general, but mostly, I mean, especially live music. I think that it's not as ubiquitous as like 80, or like 40 games of the Nuggets per year, or like 80 home games of the Rockies, who are just terrible right now. Like, you can go that, I mean, it's cool, it's fun, but like when you get to see the artist that you are in love with, that has played pivotal role in your life, and they only come through a couple, like once a year or once every
yeah.
few years, like that's a big thing,
Or even like back to AI's positive case, like even the band that AI fed you on Spotify, the real band, not the AI
Hmm.
generated, that you're like, wow, AI has gotten to know me, and they just threw on Raid in the Strike Zone. Like Youth is the band I was thinking of, YUUF.
Right.
Um, like I was like, wow, the algorithm knows me because this is just hitting so hard. And the
Yeah.
guy's like bowing an electric bass. I'm like, sign me up. And so anyway, I bought a ticket. And I can't wait to see them. And yeah, like AI's throwing some great bands at me, and like
Yeah.
that's a good side of it.
I love all that stuff. I listen to those playlists all the time, and
Yeah,
while I'm working, and it's just like sitting right there, and I'm like, and then I'll immediately hit the agent or hit the band up and say, like,
cool.
who's booking you, and when are you
And
guys
then you
coming
got a
through?
tour planned, and oh man, I
Exactly.
love that. I love that, man.
Yeah.
We just opened up like three more things we could go down, but I gotta go. I gotta go to school. Dave, I'm gonna
All
wrap it
right.
there, and I just want to end by like saying, thank you for doing this. It's been great to get to know you over the years. You're,
Absolutely.
yeah, great
Thank you.
partner, impressive guy, and happy and proud to call you a friend as well. Great, you're a great human, man. Keep it up.
Thanks. You too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, of course.